Before we get started with the video today, guys, I want to let you viewers out there know that only a small fraction of you guys currently watching are actually subscribed to my channel, so make sure to smash that subscribe button for instant updates about videos that I release and other announcements, and also smash that like button to help my channel out. Enjoy the video. Yo, what is up, guys? It is Samool here, back with another Epic 7 YouTube video for you guys today, and today I'm going to be reviewing the main character of Epic 7, Ross. Now, I'm not going to be going over his normal form, but actually his specialty change form. If you guys don't know how to specialty change, basically you go to Hero, click specialty change, and then there's going to be a list of 3 stars that have a specialty change linked to them. And you just have to do their quests. Adventurer Ross is basically just farming a lot of runes, and you need to beat episode 2, chapter 10-10, I think. And if you're struggling with that stage, I do have a guide up on my YouTube channel that actually covers that fight in depth, especially for free-to-play players and newer players. So check that out if you're struggling to beat Faustus or Strays or whatever you want to call him. But yeah, Adventure Ross, one of the best free-to-play units in the game, if not the best, alongside like Falcon or Clary, Commander Lorena, and like Amomo. And a lot of people don't really understand why. A lot of people will see like a Lilius banner running around or have pulled Lilius and always be like, why would I ever use A-Ross when I have Lilius? Well, the thing is, guys, A-Ross is a lot different from Lilius in what they're used in. Sure, they kind of have similar kits in that they have dual attacks and, you know, some support. But you have to realize A-Ross is a very, very powerful offensive threat in PvP. And in PvE, he is just a beast because of how much strips and how much dual attacks and, you know, healing to himself and tankiness he has for, you know, his entire team. Now, before I get started with stats and building, guys, let me go over where you can use him. So, in Expeditions, guys, he's very good in Earth Expedition and Dark Expedition. I've actually seen him use in all 4 Expeditions if you build him tanky enough, but you actually need pretty decent stats. So, yes, he can be used for every single Expedition, but you mostly want to use him for Earth and Dark, especially if you're a newer player and you don't have access to crazy gear. For hunts, he's going to be used in Golem, he's going to be used in Cadiz, and he's going to be always used for free-to-play and new players in Azmonak. He's rank 5 in Azmonak. He's going to be the safest pick for free-to-play players because he has so many strips. He has a defense buff to keep your team alive because Azmonak does a lot of damage. And dual attacks are very, very nice because you have to always be killing the eggs. And yeah, in Raid, he's also used in every single boss. You can literally bring him to every single boss in Raid, especially Hell Raid, and he's a monster. Very good. Automaton Tower, he's decent. I wouldn't say he's the best snipe, but he's very, very strong. Hall of Trials, very strong. Hall of Trials is all about dual attacking, guys. He's very strong. Lilius might be a little bit better, but A-Ross is still very, very good here. And then Spirit Altar, you can take, honestly, you can take whatever units here, but yeah, he's pretty strong here as well. So, you guys might be playing through the game, and you guys are like, wow, regular Ross sucks, right? Well, actually, that is true, but Adventure Ross is actually 100 times better than regular Ross. And I am not like exaggerating. It's actually like that big of a difference, especially once you actually understand what his kit fully does. So going over his kit, his S3 in Adventure Ross form is going to be an AoE attack that will increase his defense and also heal himself. So this is one of the abilities that makes him able to tank every single expedition, because if you don't know, an expedition, if you're not like the right element that corresponds with the expedition, you're actually going to take more damage. But he cycles super fast, and this Purifying Flame, his S3, actually will heal him and give him defense buff, so he actually can tank through it. You'll see his S2 is a dual attack. This is very similar to his regular form, but when you soul burn, I think it's the same actually, but when you soul burn this, it has no cooldown, so this is very, very nice in PvP because in RTA and even like Guild Wars offense, when you're stacking on a souls, you can just spam soul burn this, and it's basically going to be another turn for your DPS. Also, if you guys didn't know, skill tree is a thing for specialty change units only. If you unlock his skill tree far enough, you'll get at the last available column this rune, and what it'll do is it actually has a chance to decrease defense when you use your S2 before the DPS that you bring along attacks. So that is very important because if you land that defense break and then your strongest DPS goes, especially on squishy units, they're going to get one shot, and on bruisers, it is going to do a lot of damage. So you can see why I say he's a very, very powerful offensive threat, especially in PvP, because if you just spam Soulburn as S2, guys, Every time it's his turn, you're bringing your DPS and you have a chance to defense break, especially in like RTA, where if you guys didn't know, there's a mechanic where basically the longer RTA battles go, you do more damage, everyone does more damage, and your effectiveness goes up, so you have a higher chance to land that defense break, and you're just doing more damage. You're going to start one-shotting people on every single AROS turn. So very, very powerful in RTA. He actually was very, very strong, like about 6 months ago, I'd say. He was like first pick, worthy in a lot of games. He's fallen off a bit, but he's still very powerful in PvP, don't get me wrong. But yeah, that's his S2, very strong, very, very powerful offensive threat. This is going to be basically the best skill that he has for PvP, in my opinion. Very close to his S3 though, because defense buff is very, very good. Now his S1 is going to be a chance to dispel or strip single target. This is very, very good for PvE, especially in like Asmonak and Hell Queen, where you need to strip buffs constantly. In PvP though, it's also pretty decent, especially because there's a lot of buff units going around, right? Like Maid Chloe is an example, FCC barriers, right? Stuff like that. Very, very nice bonus to his S1. So yeah, that makes his kit very, very strong, guys. He has so much offensive pressure with his S2, especially for PvP. And defense buff is like one of the best defensive buffs. Okay, that sounds like pretty obvious, but it is a really good buff, okay? Defense buff is a very, very good buff. Also, in PvE, guys, dual attacks are very nice because similar to PvP, right? You're just bringing your DPS with you and you have a defense break, right? So you can use him as like a pseudo defense breaker. Although I don't really recommend him as your only defense break. Strip's very nice in a lot of late game PvE where you actually need to strip buffs constantly. It's kind of funny because Strays is, or not Strays, 10-10, episode 2 is a boss fight where you need to strip a lot, and he's like very, very good at stripping, but you can't use him because you need to beat it to unlock him. But instances like that, and a lot in episode 3 and like late game Abyss, which I didn't cover, but in Abyss he's very, very strong as well. You actually need to have a lot of dispels and strips, and he's very, very good for that because 75% chance is very high, and you'll see when I show you my build, you actually build him pretty fast. So PvE, he's a monster. I really recommend newer players to build him as soon as possible. Most players will actually build him right after your Wyvern team, if not like a few units after your Wyvern team, because he is just that good in PvE, and in early game PvP, he's very, very strong. Now for build, guys, also before I get into the build, another benefit to building him, right, is going to be that he doesn't cost any Mola Gora, so you're not wasting any Mola, which is your time-gated resource. All it costs is Stigma and Rare Catalysts only, so it's pretty easy to build. Downside is you need a lot of runes, so it might take a while before you can fill out his skill tree, but over time it is fine and you should be able to farm it all. Now, finally into the build. So there's only 2 stats you really need as a early game, mid game player, right? Especially if you're only using him for PvE. All you need is super high speed, as fast as you can make him, and either 65% or 80% effectiveness, depending on the content you want to use him in. So if you want to use him in Expedition, you want to aim for 80%, although you can get by with 65% because 80% is the cutoff for effectiveness cap for Expeditions. Similarly for some Abyss bosses like late game Abyss and Hell Queen, you want to aim for 80%. But if you're just going to use him for Hunt and I guess like the first 4 bosses of Raid, right, in general PvE, you can keep him at 65% and it should be fine. Now you want him super fast because you want him to cycle his S3 to heal himself, especially if you're going to have him tank and put that defense buff up, because in late game PvE there's a lot more AoE damage than single target damage. So defense buff is really, really nice. And you also want him to cycle your S2 cooldown, especially if you're not going to be soul burning this for PvE, because in PvE you're most likely going to be using your Guardian or Archie, so you're not going to really be soul burning this as much, so you want to cycle this as much as you can. And obviously S1 because you want to strip and dispel as often as you can. So you want to make him really, really fast as humanly possible, make him Usain Bolt, especially in PvP, like some people even run him at 260 speed and he's very, very strong. But yeah, defense and health, obviously important stat for tanks, especially if you want him to frontline. But what I recommend for newer players is actually like you want to have him at like somewhat tanky so he can survive with Aureus hits when he soaks the damage from Aureus, because you do want to run him on Aureus for basically everything, either Aureus or Adamant Shield, but I recommend Aureus for PvE especially. But you don't actually need him to frontline because you can just have your Soul Weaver tank in the front, and he can just stand on the side and be like a support unit. You can actually use him as like a support DPS kind of, and just have him decently bulky, not too bulky though, so that he can actually survive from Aureus damage. But yeah, make him as fast as you can, effectiveness, and then add on health and defense as needed, depending on if you want him to frontline, or if you're going to have him, you know, sit on the side and just, you know, soak damage from Aureus and support your team with his buffs and your defense break and dual attack. And yeah, so you'll see my build here. You want to run speed set on him no matter what, and then I have crit set because it just lined up that way, to be honest. But you can run like a broken set, doesn't really matter, especially for PvE. In PvP, you want to run him on like immunity or even F-res. Very, very nice. PvP, you also want to, you know, try to aim for more effect resist if you can. Yeah, I don't think I mentioned this also, by the way, but there's another pretty important mechanic on his S2 when you enhance his S2 through the skill tree. But actually, it'll give himself immunity when you use it for 2 turns, and the DPS that you bring along as well. So you actually don't need to run him on immunity for PvP if you have him super fast and you're guaranteed the first turn, or if you have some effect resist to deal with like the first round of what's it called, debuffs, because you can just go first S2, right, and then you give yourself immunity anyways, and you give your DPS immunity. So very good for Guild Wars offense and, you know, arena offense, especially for early game players, because early game you don't have access to immunity sets, so you can actually just use him and have immunity for your DPS at least, so they don't get like blinded by Rem or, you know, provoked by like FCC and stuff like that. So very decent. But yeah, like I said, you want to run him on Aureus, guys. Very strong artifact for knights in general, but PvE it's the best artifact by far. And then in PvP you can run Adamant if you want to run another Aureus with it, or if for some reason you don't have Aureus's, right? There's other artifact options, but these are the 2 I recommend, especially for newer players. They're super accessible. They're both 4 stars. There's some 5-star options you can run, but I'll cover that in a different video when I go super in depth about artifacts. But yeah, so Aros, guys, must build. Really highly recommend building him alongside, like, you know, Falcon McClurry, Amomo, Serenity, all very good specialty change units. But I do think Aros is tied for the best with Amomo in terms of usability in PvE, and also very strong in PvP, guys. So don't feel bad if you build him because you think that he's only used in PvE. Even if he was only used in PvE, I would still build him though, because he's that good. But he's also very strong in PvP. Rarely do you ever get a gacha game where the main character is like actually good. And in this case, he's like OP, right? Not OP, but very strong, I'd say. Borderline OP. Probably OP for PvE. So I do really recommend building him. If you don't have him built and you're an early mid-game player, build him ASAP, guys. He's super strong. He's very low investment. You don't need Mola. You can slot him in so many areas and free up your gear for other units. So think of it as like a, you know, long-term investment. So yeah, really recommend building Aros, guys. I really hope this hero review helped you out. And let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see more of these free-to-play units reviews or some PvP units reviews. Whatever you guys want. I'm down to make whatever. I'm just doing this for you guys and trying to help you guys out. As always, guys, try to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel out a lot, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Peace.